Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to our third installment and the final one on the kings. More precisely, what Proverbs have to say to kings. We've seen so far that kings need to establish their kingdom on righteousness. And we dare to connect it back to the present community of believers, the church. How that's our leadership should focus, righteousness. Then we moved on to behind the veil, in a sense of reminding ourselves that these kings have been established by God. So to resist them is to resist Him. Not something we like to hear, but still what the Word says. Well, now we're going to actually focus on the other side, us. Most of the Proverbs we're going to look at right now will focus on the people before the kings. So we hope it'll speak to our hearts a bit. We're going to look at the grab bag this time. In the last couple of videos, we saw sections, almost like parts in a chapter. Now we're going to look at many little proverbs dispersed throughout in a chronological way. Starting actually with the focus on the king himself, but we'll quickly be led into the people, and you'll see what I mean. So we start in chapter 14 and read this. In a multitude of people is the glory of a king, but without people, a prince is ruin. Here we already see a contrast between multitudes and no people, between having the glory and being ruined, knowing that the prince and the king are interchangeable. It's all about rulers and leaders. And no, it's not about necessarily having a big church, a big community, but it is the fact that if you're going to dwindle down and mistreat your people to the point you're losing them, then you'll lose out. And it's sad how many dictators throughout history did not know this or forgot this. How many sent countless people to fight and die, and getting more people to do it to the point where they had no more people. Their people dwindled down and they turned against them. So the multitude of people is also about a sense of having healthy people, a group that wants to follow you. That's where your glory is found as a leader. Not just having a big group of people, but having those who want to be a part of you, of what you're doing, of what you're leading, compared to those who want to walk away. But like I said, this is the focus on the people. So now we're going to see more what Proverbs have to tell us before the kings. And we begin, I should say, in a sense, with a servant who deals wisely has the king's favor. But his wrath falls on one who acts shamefully. Again, contrast between being wise, living according to God's rule and standards, compared to being shameful, which is usually what the fool does. He's shameful because he goes contrary to God's will and wisdom. And so on one side, you'll have his favor of the king, while on the other side, you'll have his wrath. Doesn't sound good. And as we'll continue along, we'll see what this favor and wrath looks like and what to do to get it. But still, we focus right now on the wise way of living compared to the foolish way and shameful way of doing it. So what does it look like, this favor and this wrath? A king's wrath is like the growling of a lion, but his favor is like dew in the grass. So his favor is life-giving, right? Dew gives life, refreshes, helps the grass. That's what it means to have the king's favor. Especially behind him is the King of Kings. It'll be good for you. But his wrath, though. The lion, when he growls, because he's going to attack. He's going to destroy. He's going to eat. That's not a good thing. And that's kind of where the next proverb leads us. With the same kind of idea, it says, the terror of a king is like the growling of a lion. Whoever provokes him to anger forfeits his life. This is parallelism. Repeating the same thing in two different ways. Explaining what we just said in another way. We've already seen this notion, the terror, the wrath of the king, like a growling lion. But here's what it's going to look like. It's like provoking him to the point of him killing you. Just in case you weren't sure, here's it is in the most plainest sense. provoking the king, provoking him with a shameful, shameless, foolish way of living, will incur the wrath that might kill you. And so we really want to wonder, like, what is it we have to do, therefore, to be more on his favor side, more on the wisdom side than the shameful side? At least I hope it's calling upon you for that truth. Especially that we tend not to fear too much the leadership, especially here in North America, because they can't do that much. But when you remember that behind them is God, then this should so speak to us. This is still God talking to us, calling to us. So how do we get his favor? He who loves purity of heart and whose speech is gracious will have the king as his friend. His friendship, his favor, same thing. But like Abraham was a friend of God. How? Well, we have it here, right? A purity of heart, a way of life, actually. If your heart is pure, you'll live in a pure way. You'll live according to God's standard and morality. But also how you speak. A gracious speech, which is not just about saying nice things, it's also including things like lying, which Abraham had huge problems with. But still, it's the gracious speech, the honorable speech, that will make you friends with the king. That's what he proves of, because we know the good king, the godly king, establishes his kingdom of righteousness. So he wants to see that in his people. Again, a pure heart, which leads to a pure life, and a gracious speech, the way we honor God with our mouths. But it's not just about this morality, though. I find it really interesting. This proverb says, do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. We see the contrast right here, right? The standing before the king or the obscure, the nobody. And this isn't about trying to make ourselves important. It's just saying a basic truth. You want to be with the king. He's the representative of God. That's a good thing. The obscure man, especially in Proverbs and in the Word, really shows those who are kind of pushed away from God, pushed away by God. But how do you do it? Skillfulness. Not necessarily just morality, also being good at your job. Kind of reminds me what Paul says to the servants, the slaves. He doesn't say pray a lot, witness to your masters, just do good spiritual things. No, he said be good workers. Even when they don't look at you, do your job well. That's striking, isn't it? Kind of goes against the grain of what we're used to, saying do a good job. That will honor God. It's doing a good job, your skillfulness, being the best at what you can be, is what brings you before this God, this king who represents God. So, we've seen this notion of morality, we've seen this notion of skillfulness, and I will put it into practice. In a setting, if you will. As we turn to the last of the Proverbs, which is technically a grouping of 3 in chapter 23, we're going to kind of be brought before the king. You've learned something, now let's live it out. As we read, when you sit down to eat with a ruler, observe carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat. If you are given to appetite, do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. I would say that basically the call here is to live out the morality we just saw. And I'll explain what I mean. So you're now before the king. You've done the right things. You're brought before him. Be careful. Be careful, first of all, with the food that's before you. It's very vivid, right? The image, put a knife to your throat, almost cut your throat. It will keep you from just throwing yourself into gluttony. In other words, be self-controlled, which is a pure heart, right? Living according to what God says. We've seen it over and over again in the Proverbs. Moderation. Even though you're before the king, and you'll probably have a super feast there, foods you've never heard of, keep yourself under control. Don't just throw yourself at them. When he turns to the delicacies, yes, he could be talking about food, but I think there's something more here. Because we've seen this notion of delicacies that seem good, but then when they enter the bowels, they become all bitter. Talking about gossip. I think that's what he's hinting at. Don't be so quick to want to feed on the gossip, especially around the king's table, with other rulers, talking about other lands and the people. Don't be so quick to devour that. Again, it's deceptive. It's a deceptive food. Oh yeah, it sounds good hearing about how this king's doing that and that queen's doing that. Don't feed on that. Because that brings us to the second part, right? The gracious speech. Don't just give in to the gossip. Hold yourself back from it. Don't just feed on it and spew your own out. Keep yourself from it. It's, as it says here, deceptive. Could be wrong. But I believe as we've seen it progress, that that's kind of where he's leading. Be careful how you'll behave and what you will say before this king. And even though we don't have a king here in North America, in Canada where I live, and I'll never probably be presented to a prime minister or something, there's still a sense where we should live in a way that honors God before these rulers, even if they never see us. See that what Paul says and Peter says. We live to live in a way that honors the laws of our country. Be skillful, not just spiritual. Be good citizens, not just good Christians, if I could put it like that. We can be so prone, especially here, to want to fight against injustice and be against the bad government that do bad things. But the Bible puts more and more emphasis on just being a good, faithful citizen. Living a righteous life to honor God in the world we're in. So may we look for the simplicity of having a pure heart, a gracious speech, and being skillful in all we do before these kings, their brothers and sisters.